Humans' negative impacts on the environment are not up for debate. It is an evident fact that we have significant contributions to its destructions. And as we move forward through the 21st century, we have altered the world in unparalleled ways. As a matter of fact, we have changed at least 70% of our environment. Our activities have resulted in the repercussions that will be difficult to overturn, and as a result, triggered climate change. But out of all the human activities, we will focus on our use of fertilizers. Around 1.4% of annual carbon dioxide emissions are attributed to the global production of fertilizers. And fertilizer use is a substantial source of non-carbon dioxide greenhouse gas emissions. In this info video, we will focus on how humans' use of fertilizers has impacted the land, the sedimentary cycle, and the phosphorus cycle, and why we must rethink this action.
The very first use of synthetic fertilizer can be traced back to 1903, wherein the compounds used was calcium nitrate. Since then, many countries have started using synthetic fertilizer. According to the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources, synthetic fertilizers are chemically manufactured materials that contains one or more primary nutrients that are needed for plant growth. These nutrients being nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Synthetic fertilizers are made from human-made compounds, such as ammonium nitrate, ammonium phosphate, and potassium sulfate. And its difference from organic fertilizer is that synthetic fertilizer are sprayed or are spread through pellets onto the plant, while organic fertilizers are mixed into the soil.
The excessive use of chemical fertilizers has led to several issues such as serious soil degradation, nitrogen leaching, soil compaction, reduction in soil organic matter, and loss of soil carbon. Synthetic fertilizers can be bad for the environment because they frequently include greater quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus, which large amounts of these from manure or synthetic fertilizer used on farms wash into rivers, killing off marine life and contributing to greenhouse gas emissions that are extremely detrimental to everyone living on Earth as well as to the ecosystem.
We will now discuss the effects of synthetic fertilizers on the sedimentary cycle. First and foremost, the sedimentary cycle is a form of biogeochemical cycle that uses the Earth's crust as its reservoir. It is a process that starts with the weathering of existing rock and continues with mineral erosion, transport, and then deposition. Iron, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, and other earthbound elements go through sedimentary cycles. Synthetic fertilizer used on a wide scale over an extended period will cause several environmental problems like soil acidity and crust. Some tropical agriculture are experiencing severe and early soil crust than anticipated because large amounts of nitrogen fertilizer were used instead of organic fertilizer. Numerous forms of synthetic fertilizers include significant levels of acidity, which frequently makes the soil more acidic. The more acidic the soil is, the more prone it is to chemical weathering.
The next part is how synthetic fertilizers negatively affect the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus circulates in various forms throughout the soil, water, and living and dead organic matter in the phosphorus cycle. Additionally, due to leaching, phosphorus can leave the soil through surface runoff, erosion, and subsurface loss. The introduction and usage of commercial synthetic fertilizers by humans significantly impact the phosphate cycle. When synthetic fertilizers are used commercially, they mix with the soil through runoff. When they seep through, they contaminate the groundwater, which is ingested by other species and impacts their biological systems. Whenever phosphate and nitrates leach into the water, algae growth reduces the water's oxygen content and affects aquatic life. Generally speaking, too much phosphorus pollutes the ecosystem and negatively impacts both terrestrial and marine life, which could result in biomagnification.
Humans can effectively be considered an invasive species through the nature of taking over natural resources and expanding onto new land to compensate for the growing population. The continued increase in human population is not directly proportional to the available natural resources left on the planet, which is why we are forced to engineer and resort to artificial alternatives. An example in the agricultural sector involves synthetic fertilizers, which are chemically manufactured fertilizers that contain primary nutrients necessary for plant growth, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Due to the abuse of synthetic fertilizers, the phosphorus content concentrates into water systems through runoff, causing eutrophication, making water sources uninhabitable for fish and other wildlife.
So, in this part, we are looking at other feasible method that can replace synthetic fertilizer, which is organic fertilizer. Organic fertilizer are made from natural sources rather than being created by humans. Like for example, manure, blood and bones, guano, compost, and kelp products are a few examples. Because they typically need to decompose first, organic fertilizers typically have lower nutrient concentration and may absorb more slowly than inorganic fertilizer. The benefit of organic fertilizer is that they raise the soil's organic content. This enhances the soil's physical composition, which raises the soil's capacity to store water.
Synthetic fertilizers devastate aquatic life and phosphorus runoff from farms and landscapes, significantly contributing to problems. The fertilizer is said to be dangerous for children and fur friends. Their usage has been linked to a wide range of adverse outcomes, including but not limited to lower birth weight, neurological damage, and cancer. Why do we prefer organic fertilizers over synthetic fertilizers? The organic fertilizer increases amount of organic matter in the soil, improving the soil health and enhancing cation exchange and water holding capabilities, which is a good thing. As a group, we support using organic fertilizer rather than synthetic fertilizer since organic is more stable and safer than synthetic fertilizer. Again, we must reconsider our decision. Rethink synthetic.
To conclude, despite the seemingly immediate impact of synthetic fertilizers, they can seriously deplete the nutritional content of our crops and contribute very little to the ecosystem. Indeed, we must rethink synthetic. Let us find other ways to improve the growth of our crops without compromising our environment. For instance, we have organic fertilizer that also improves soil texture and increase bacterial and fungal activity in the soil, and at the same time, are good for our environment. So why settle for something that harms us? We have a choice, and our choices determine our future and the environment. We have already altered our environment in unparalleled ways. Let us now rethink all of our actions as humans. Rethink synthetic.